This week on the TT show, a gamer has been shown playing Mario Kart with telepathy. New 3D Mark AI benchmark designed to bring GPUs to their knees. First private lunar lander sadly dies. PlayStation VR on PC. A breakthrough in preventing OLED burn-in. Biggest iOS update ever adds more customization. Elon Musk's brain chip may cure blindness. NVIDIA can make 3D models in just seconds, and much, much more. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the TT show. My name is Jak Connor. I'm a hardware editor over at Tweaktown, and today I'm joined by my co-host,
Kosta Andriadis, gaming hardware editor at Tweaktown.
Hello, my friend.
How are we? You know what we didn't, I mean, obviously it's just another stacked episode, but we didn't talk about last week was we both saw Dune
That is
Part 2
right.
finally.
That is right. Do you want to kick that, like this episode off with that?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, what did you think straight away?
Yeah, I mean, brilliant. I mean, I think because I loved Part 1. I think it's probably some of the best movies that, like, you know, they're sort of like big budget sci-fi or fantasy or whatever, like that type of like event style movie. It's probably the best thing since Lord of the Rings, and before that was probably Star Wars, like the original Star Wars. Yeah, it's just epic filmmaking.
I completely agree. I went and saw it with my girlfriend and two of my mates, and we typically go and see movies and then we come back and have some drinks and absolutely dissect like what we just witnessed. And we essentially agreed that if this is a trilogy, and who is it? Denis Villeneuve?
Yep.
Yeah. The director, if he does all three movies, which it appears that he is going to do, it could be the best trilogy since the original Star Wars for sci-fi.
Yeah. And you know, the original Star Wars, I mean, George Lucas actually borrowed quite a few things from Dune. The story, but also like, you know, everything like, you know, Japanese films like Hidden Fortress. Anyway, like, you know, like the hero's journey, and, you know, like George Lucas was a fan of like sci-fi and classic fantasy and storytelling, and, you know, Star Wars was modeled to be that sort of like classic story, which is why it resonated so well.
Yeah.
But like, you know, there's a lot of elements from Dune in Star Wars, and you kind of like see a few of those in Part 1 and Part 2, but like Dune is like very different to Lord of the Rings or Star Wars. So like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings have very clear-cut classic good versus evil storytelling. I mean, there is obviously shades of grey everywhere in those, but like it's clearly defined. I mean, Tolkien with Lord of the Rings, like it's clearly defined what's good, what's evil.
Yeah.
Whereas in Dune, like you can latch on to the Atreides and like their family getting wiped out and suckered by the Emperor and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it is way more cynical. I mean, I wouldn't say cynical, but, you know, like it's way more like, well, hey, you know, as soon as anybody gets in power, it's not good.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. For the first, and I should preface this, if you haven't seen Dune 2, skip ahead to one of the chapters on the YouTube video, or just
we'll try and be spoiler free to an extent.
Oh no, I'm not going to be. I need to talk. I'm going in here. For the first half of the movie, I thought that Paul was very similar to Aragorn's storyline in the Lord of the Rings, which is completely different to what is in the book. In the book, he knows exactly who he is, and he is the king that is returning to Gondor. But in the
movies, it's a little bit more reluctant.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be the guy. He doesn't want to be who he's born to be. And for the first half of that movie, Paul Atreides didn't want to be the the Isan Gib or whatever. What is, I can't remember, I don't know, Lasana Gib as written. And I thought that was a very similar kind of storyline, but then it kind of, I mean, it was a long movie, but from the second half of the second half of the second act onwards, he really does completely shift into almost like a maniacal ruler. It becomes more Anakin Skywalker, and there is so many shots during that second half where he's walking with the cow over his head, and that they're all moving to the everyone's moving to the side, and I'm like, that is a shot straight out of Star Wars from when Anakin is walking into the when he just murders all those children. Yeah. That is the same shot where he's like walking in, and like the cow's all the way down like this, and he's just walking, and everyone is terrified. So I kind of see this. I haven't read the books, and I know that I think there's 6 of them, and not all of them are about House Atreides as well, which I like.
Yeah.
I think he's a false prophet. Like the way that they teed it up at the end, where he's like, making the Emperor essentially kiss his hand, and like he is the guy, and he drinks that worm piss, and now he can see the future and the past at the same time. He's kind of like Bran in Game of Thrones, like the Third Eye Raven. But they've teed him up in such a way where I think it
could go either way, in terms of if you don't know or.
I think it would be shocking if he just is good in the third movie. I think you'd be like, wait, what? I think it's going to end in tragedy. I think it will. And they're my favorite stories ever, is the ones that end in tragedy.
It's bold that Denis, obviously because it's a really good adaptation, and no adaptation should be like a shot for shot, sort of
no, of course not.
It just doesn't work. Books don't translate to movies or TV shows straight up, in a linear fashion. You have to. For one thing, when you're reading a book, there's way more characters, and things are more drawn out. So you have to consolidate things. But anyway, it's bold that the first movie ended kind of halfway through the first book, and it ended essentially mid-sentence. It's okay, there's a third act to this, or this is thing, and the sequel wasn't greenlit at all at that point.
Yeah.
So it's so it was a pretty bold move to say, well, hey, you can make one movie. But unless if it doesn't perform at the box office, you're not going to make a second one. So it's oh, well, we'll just go all in and end on a cliffhanger, whether we get to make the second one or not. And so the second one ends essentially not necessarily on a cliffhanger, because there's resolution, but it ends with okay, ...
Yes.
We're setting it sets things up for more. And there's no third movie that was greenlit either.
Yeah, I think because of the way that the story is going, we're following Paul, him coming into who he is as a person, and then I bet you that is going to be the downfall of him. He's going to get drunk with power, and then the third movie should is probably the wrong word, but I would guess it ends in him essentially dying because of what he now believes is he is the ruler, etc., etc. Drunk with power. But I really don't want there to be 5 of these movies. I love me a tight trilogy. Give me 3 really good movies. And usually the setup for these, a trilogy, is first movie introduces viewers to the world and the character's premise and where their arc is going to start off from. Usually it either starts from a high point where they are the ruler, and then they got to find their personality and change who they are. By the end of the third movie, that's the setup of the premise of the first one. And then the second one is them finding themselves, which is exactly what we saw in this one. And then the third movie is usually a big battle scene. And, from that battle is either defeat or achievement. And like take Lord of the Rings is like the Battle of Pelennor Fields in front of the White City. They won. That's the end of the story. But I think this is going to go the other way. I think it's going to be like he's going to get everything that he wants, and that's going to be what's going to destroy him. Which I think is an even better story because I think it's more relatable. Like not everything ends. Not everything in life ends the way that you want it to, even if you get everything that you want. So I think it's going to, but I don't want 5 movies. Like, and also if Denis Villeneuve doesn't do the 3rd movie, it's going to be like an artist coming in with a canvas.
Yeah, it's so specific, the filmmaking in these 2 movies.
Yeah, right? Yeah. It's like if he doesn't do the 3rd one, and I'm pretty sure he's going to because of how much money the 2nd one has made, it's going to be exactly the same as if an artist did, 3/4 of a painting, and then they got another bloke to come in and just finish it off. It's like, yeah, he can, kind of sketch it in and he can make it work, but it's not the same vision as...
He could still be hands-on, like, for example, like, yeah, but like the problem is that either you go all in or not. Like he's the type of filmmaker that like he's not going to be, writing the script and then being a producer or then being there for like all pre-production and then kind of like not be directing on set or not in the editing room. Where films come together and stuff like that. Like, like that sort of filmmaker is either all in or not, I would think.
And I agree. How good was the score?
Yeah, amazing. I mean, the first one was good. It's so good. Like, I would just want to, I would love to see, I can't wait till this comes out on like 4K Blu-ray or whatever, just to be able to watch part 1 and part 2 back to back over like 2 nights. Because I think it would really feel like
one movie.
Each one would make like the other one better.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I had the first one rated at like, I think it was like 8.2 or 8.3, and then after I saw the second one, it made the first one better. And that's usually like for the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I think the Two Towers is probably the weakest out of the 3. But we're talking like for my scores, like these are all like 9 movies. Like I would say Fellowship is rated the highest at 9.5.
I would say Fellowship is but the problem is like Fellowship almost wins by default because it's the road movie. Like, like the road movie, like that structure of like people going from one place to another is so easy to not that it's so easy to follow, but it's like it's such an entertaining because there's always this momentum. Like the road movie especially like always just is like more watchable or rewatchable, whereas Two Towers then like by design has to like pump the brakes and say, well, we're going to have to show you these people, these storylines, and it's going to have to become political and more complicated.
Yes, yeah.
And down and dirty. Right. And yeah, so like but I agree, like the Fellowship is the best movie of the trilogy.
It's the introduction to the world.
Comes down to like how watchable it is.
Yeah. So I really hope it's a tight trilogy for Dune, and I don't want them to see how much money they're making and then like if Denis Villeneuve does 3 and then they're like, oh, let's keep making them. I'm like, no. Kill Paul Atreides' story off on the 3rd, and then drop me off on another spot on Arrakis with another house. Like, I love the world. Give me that. Give me more of the world, but give me
like you can do more.
Yeah, but I just don't want Paul Atreides' story to be dragged out. It's like those TV shows that are great, like The Walking Dead. Like, The Walking Dead is a perfect example. Of of a show that should have ended at like season 5.
Yeah, like was it like? I think like that's a show where like everybody just drops off at some point. There's like some point where you're just like, oh, yeah, I've seen like what else? Like it's just retreating the same ground over and over.
Yeah, post-apocalyptic is a story. It is a premise for me at least that lacks depth. It's either you cure everybody or they all die. Like, that's how it ends. There's only 2 ways this can go.
My problem with The Walking Dead was how like dour, like how, like grim and bleak they tried to make everything.
Yeah.
Like like I almost like dropped off at like I think like season 2 or whatever, where they have like like a bunch of kids, like they're all like in a post-apocalypse, and they're just like the kids are just they're sitting there like sad like all day long. It's like as if they're not going to be playing. Like, kids like play and like find like what I'm saying, like the human imagination, like it's like you're just making it like grim just for the sake of it, like it's like,
unnecessary
like it
drama.
has no depth to it, you know what I mean? Like that's not how it works.
I'm really excited for Dune. I can't wait for the third one. The second one was awesome. My favorite part in that movie was when he's telling Zendaya, he's like, I will always love you. I will always love you. And he like kisses her hand and then walks straight over to Florence Pugh and the Emperor. He's like, I'll marry that. I'll marry that.
He means it though. Like,
It made me laugh so hard. I was sitting next to my girlfriend and my best mate, and I think Florence Pugh is just like a dime. She's gorgeous. And as soon as he said that, I giggled and I'm like, I just put up the nice sign. I'm like, that's exactly what I would have done.
That's his fallback plan.
Yeah.
Like if she says no.
He's like, I'll always love you. I'll always love you. And then he just goes straight over to the next hottest girl there. He's like, I will marry you. I'll do this right now. And Zendaya's like, wait, what? Oh, also, I didn't really, before we get into the news here, something that I didn't think was portrayed very well was Zendaya's disdain for, or her, she doesn't believe that he is the prophet, but she's like in the room when he's telling other people about their dreams, and everyone else, and including that guy where he's like, as written, like that was the funniest part of
there was still like
yeah, but where's her doubt?
Clever. Like if you go back the dialogue, it's vague enough that a skeptic would be like, well, you could just be, you could just, that's like kind of like, psychic level, predictions, like, TV psychics and things like that, that can generalize and people go, oh yeah, that's me. And I believe you 100%. That's how vague his prophecy type stuff that he says is, until like he takes the worm juice. but that like if I was Zendaya and he's standing in a room full of people that he's never met, and he's like walked in there and he starts telling them about their dreams and they're literally falling to their knees, I would have been like, all right, then this is pretty convincing. Like, I just don't think it was. Maybe it wasn't vague enough. I don't, for me at least, because it was really. I was like, she was the only person in the room that was standing, and I'm like, really? But also as well,
still,
she doesn't want him.
Yeah.
To be that, so she also is like looking for anything to say, like, no, don't. Like, maybe he's not going to. That's not him. Like, she, like, whether she believes it or not, her not wanting him to be the Messiah, so to speak, is stronger than what her belief is, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So then she's going to be showing that emotion more so than what she believes.
I completely agree with that, and that's something that me and my mates came to the conclusion with, because we've really kind of felt the same way, where we were like, does she really not believe, like, after everything that he's done? Like, what he's done is unbelievable. Everyone else that is involved is like, oh yeah, no, he's the guy. But maybe upon the second watch, because I haven't seen it twice, I'll pay attention to that storyline a bit more, and maybe I'll see it, like, see the vagueness or her bias as well. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting story, and I really hope they round it off in a nice 3, because I love me a tight trilogy. With that all being said,
let's jump into some
news,
tech and science news. Gaming.
Let's do it. Let's start off with what I think could be the strangest yet most awesome piece of technology I've seen in a while. I think we have talked about Neuralink on the show before, but not in detail, and it might have just been an update in terms of like, oh, they're doing the first human trials.
Yep.
But the first human trials is underway. The first human to receive one of Elon Musk's brain implants, well, he's alive and he's playing Mario Kart, which is I think awesome, because during the presentation that Neuralink held on X, they said that it was one of the first things that he wanted to do. He wanted to, like, he gets the brain. Yeah. He's a quadriplegic. I should preface this. So he's a 29-year-old man named Nolan Argbog. Man, I butchered that. Arbo. 29-year-old man named Nolan Arbo. He sadly became paralyzed from the neck down after a tragic diving accident 8 years ago, and he was the first patient to receive the Neuralink brain chip, which is called telepathy. It's actually a brain computer interface, and one of his first requests after him being able to successfully move a mouse, a cursor on a PC with his thoughts, was to play Civ 6 and Mario Kart. I'm like, that's my guy. Like that.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
That is like, my guy.
It's like, oh, what do you want to do? Well, I haven't played Fallout.
Gaming, dude. That's what do you want to do?
Yeah. I mean, this is like it's like the perfect, because like a lot of discussion around Neuralink is like, oh, it's like a luxury item, if you know what I mean? Like it's like, be able to control or interface with a PC or computer or any sort of thing using your brain, and it's kind of like a cyborg implant as opposed to a something with a medical benefit.
Well, just to push back on that, this is, and I suppose to squash that kind of conversation, these are purely designed for medical treatment. So the idea with telepathy, at least, and the brain computer interface, the BCI, is to give movement, or at least more options to people that are paralyzed, so they are able to interact with a mouse, and through that they can, send messages online, they can play games, etc. But cool the end goal is to actually give movement back to patients that are paralyzed. And I'm not sure of the exact science behind this, but my very rudimentary understanding of the technology is the BCI, it is implanted onto the brain as neurons are firing or not firing. So when Nolan is thinking about moving his left finger, he can feel that it is moving, but it is not moving, which is a very strange thing. It's hard for me to actually comprehend that. But that is paralysis.
It's like the phantom limb syndrome.
Yes, essentially, right. And what this device does is detects the neurons that aren't firing to actually make the movement, and puts electricity into the body to then generate that movement. Now, that could be completely wrong for telepathy, but I know exactly that is exactly what is happening with the new chip that they're working on right now, which is called, what is it called? Blind sight. So that is that is the next chip that Neuralink is working on, and it is apparently being tested in monkeys right now. So Musk said on X that all of the hardware, we'll put it in tech terms for the listeners here, all of the hardware for people that are blind is there, but the neurons that are firing, that aren't firing to those bits of hardware. So what the implant will do is detect those neurons, put electricity in them, boom, they're now firing. Vision is now activated. So he's now saying it's working in monkeys. Resolution, it will be really low at first, like early Nintendo graphics, but also ultimately may exceed normal human vision. I think this is incredible technology. I didn't know that I was going to be alive. That
was kind of like, it's similar to the story last week about the solar powered eye implants.
Yes.
Where it's like a low resolution. It's like a similar thing. Like, I'm just wondering why they're, obviously it's like so complicated in terms of like, the science or the tech. It's like far above what I could.
Oh yeah, no, I don't even know if it's all public.
I'm just like wondering why it's like is it an eye going into the brain or the eyes? Like why, if it's like to cure blindness, wouldn't it just be an eye implant?
I think it goes into the brain because through that connection you can detect what neurons are dead, what ones are firing. So I think from Elon's tweets, he's saying that the hardware's there, but the connection, the software isn't working, essentially. And what the BCI will do is detect where the software is broken and then essentially fix it. It's very difficult to wrap my head around, and I'm definitely not going to be a first adopter. Well, I don't even think I could get one, but I don't, first gen, second gen, third gen. I think I'm like Gen 10 away from this. I'm only going to get one of these after everybody gets one of these and I become obsolete.
So you can jack into the Matrix like everybody else.
How do you feel about becoming a cyborg?
Oh, I was actually going to say, like, thinking about like Civilization 6 or that type of game, like being able to just control it with your mind, like if you're just like looking at the screen and just going like, select those units, move there. Because a lot of those games are just like APM, right? Like, so that's the metric that you measure for like a real-time strategy game called actions per minute. And, like the best StarCraft players in the world could do like, 100 plus actions per minute. And they just click so fast, the mouse moves so fast. What that means is like, it's like select this unit, build this building here, do this. Like, at the start of the game, they can do 100 things in 60 seconds. So I'm just thinking like, it'll be cool like to play a game like Civ or something like that because your brain will just work so much faster than your fingers, or for most people anyway.
Well,
is that you just be able to just go like, all right, I'm just controlling the game. It'd just be so cool.
Yeah, it would be awesome. Even doing like the work we do where we type, we're using a keyboard for the majority of the day. It would be awesome if the implant was able to detect keystrokes by thoughts. So I could actually, I don't know how it would work, because it would almost need to work in a way where it types out words that I think, not like if I wanted to write monkey, I don't want to have to go MONKEY. Like I just want to go, the monkey is going to the zoo. Those like keyboards.
Wouldn't that just be like similar to, I mean, there's already like dictation. You can just like dictate and it'll just generate the text.
Yeah, but you can think way faster than you can talk.
Yeah, it's true.
Those keyboards that they have in courtrooms.
Yeah, the stenographer type keyboards. With shorthand.
They type in words. It needs to be able to do that. That would be awesome. I would do my entire day's work in like, I don't know, 40 minutes. It would take me longer to read the news than to write it. I mean, that's kind of where it's at now, but it would be like the discrepancy between those two would be far greater. Very cool piece of technology. I didn't think I'd be alive to see this. And if you want to go check out the video, internally, so cool. Neuralink posted the Mario Kart gameplay footage into their Slack chat or whatever, and got they got their employees to vote on which character. I think it was Bowser and some other character. And they're like, which one is being played by Nolan, the guy with the implant? And it was quite divided. Like you can't really tell which one is being is actually being played by someone with a brain implant. And I think
I wonder what the input latency is like.
Oh yeah, that is interesting. That is very interesting. Yeah,
You know, like latency is like this thing, like a measurement. Like, what's the input latency?
Yeah, it. What if it's like a? It would have to be milliseconds, right? Like above 1 millisecond. It's not like an OLED panel where it's like 0.03. Or you are jacked in. So
I mean, like what? Like how is it how is it the transmission? Is it just like Bluetooth? No, it wouldn't be Bluetooth. It would be Wi-Fi.
I don't.
How's it like sending the signals to the PC?
I don't know. I have no idea about. I don't
like
know.
RF, like
I don't even know if that's public.
I don't know.
I don't know if that's public. Yeah. I haven't seen any stories about the specifics of the technology. Like, I want to know what hardware is in there.
I shouldn't make it like fun, but like it would be like, you know, syncing your controller to your PlayStation.
Oh yeah. He's got to click. He's like click and hold. He's click and hold, and then like it just starts to flash. It's like beep, beep, beep. And it's like Bluetooth paired, and you just hear that hear it in your thoughts. Very cool. Regardless, it is what a weird time to be alive. And if he can genuinely cure blindness, and not even in like blindness, for people that have gone blind, he's talking about people that were born blind as well, which is that is incredible. But that's what you want
to see, like you want to see things like blindness and deafness and those type of things that just seem, you know, uncurable, or like, you know, that's a part of everything, like just be a thing of the past at some point.
Yeah, definitely. And to see it happen in our lifetime, I think it's absolutely insane. I want to know if you've got ray tracing on this thing. Does it come with like PlayStation's PSSR, or is there upscaling technology? What are we doing? Does it have RT cores? I want to know the hardware. I want to benchmark the Neuralink is what I want to do. I want to see some numbers, Kosta. Yeah, I'm very glad that the first patient isn't dead as well. I think that's awesome.
I know, right?
Yeah, because...
Or like has gone insane. Like, you know.
Yeah. I mean, if he did go insane, he can't really do much, I suppose, but... yeah, he said it's already changed his life, so that's awesome. I'm very, very happy. Imagine what I thought was strange after watching the Mario Kart thing. How does he differentiate between like, okay, I'm gonna go kind of left, or it's like, oh, I need to go hard left here. Like, I wonder, is he thinking like I need to hit brake? And turn left at the same time, like.
Yeah, I like the specifics of the controls, but like it mentions that for like Civ, like with moving the mouse, it's like the learning or the training involves figuring out what's like an imaginary thought or like versus this type of thought.
Yeah,
to be able to control it. So there's obviously like training involved to being able to focus on the specific thoughts or actions, you know, in order to control something. I love
it's going to be a very strange future having people walk around with these things. What I love is that is one of the first things that he said during when the news broke. He's like he was able to play Civilization 6 for up to 8 hours, and the only thing stopping him from playing more was the brain chip interface running out of battery, requiring a recharge.
That's classic.
He said he was up until 5 a.m. playing Civ 6. This is my guy, man. Like, that is what I would be doing as well. I'm like, put me in the game, leave me alone. Let me go. Nah, shout outs to Nolan, man. Good on him. And good on Neuralink for not killing him yet.
Cool.
Next story we have up. Did you want to do the 3D Mark?
Well, yeah, let's go into some AI gaming stuff.
Okay.
Well, this one isn't actually like gaming. So, like, if you know, like 3D Mark from UL Solutions, that's the company that makes 3D Mark. You know, they create synthetic benchmarks for testing your graphics card, right? So you got like Firestrike was the old one. Now you got Time Spy, and they got a new one coming out very soon. That's going to be like the next generation, sort of like benchmark. And you run the benchmark, and you get a score. You run it at different resolutions, and you get a score, and you see like how good your GPU is, and like it's a measure of like potential performance, but also it's kind of like a race as well. Like, you know, people want to overclock to get the highest score possible, and
yeah, it's not indicative
like
of
a
real
leaderboard
world
aspect to
performance.
it. But like, you know, like a new, like it's kind of like, you know, whenever like a new generation of GPUs arrive, you see like this big jump in like 3D Mark scores.
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah. You know, that's the good stuff.
Yeah, of course it is.
So UL Solutions have got like a new benchmark called UL Procyon, I don't know, AI image generation benchmark. It's built around Stable Diffusion, which is a generative AI model, a popular one for generating images. And so basically this is a benchmark that is designed like 3D Mark to test the performance of a modern GPU. But a modern GPU, which would be like a GeForce RTX GPU, which has AI hardware, or one of the later Radeon GPUs or integrated GPUs that have AI hardware. So basically this measures GPU performance running different generative AI tests, and you know, like it tests you know, like a specific resolution, and then there's like inference engines like, you know, TensorRT, which is like NVIDIA's, or there's the Intel one, etc., etc. So it's basically like a GPU benchmark.
So it tests. So it only tests the AI hardware. That's it.
Yeah, well, like it's VRAM, it's like the GPU, and like, you know, CUDA cores are like designed to be good for AI as well as the Tensor cores and stuff like that. So it's basically like you need a modern GPU that's kind of like good for AI. But you know, any GPU can run these things, but like depending on, you know, the older ones won't be very good at all. And also there's like VRAM limitations, and they're required. I think you need like a minimum 8 gig card to run the basic test.
Okay, yep.
Because that's how it works. Like you just need that much memory for AI.
Yeah.
But anyway, so like 3D Mark is like on Steam, right? And I've got it on Steam, and here at Tweaktown we have like a professional licenses that we all have access to, so we can run the full 3D Mark benchmark suite. And 3D Mark has like a ray tracing test. It has a DLSS test or super resolution test. And I saw this news and I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to get this because this is cool. This will be like another metric, right? Like if you're a new generation of GPUs, you can test like the AI image generation performance. And image generators are the most popular thing that people use AI, as in like non-professionals. The only problem is that this thing costs $5,000
What?
US for an annual license.
Annual?
Yeah, so it's not.
Do you even get to keep
like
the images?
You don't get to keep. It's not. It doesn't. You don't keep the image. It runs the same like like, you know. It's just a benchmark, so it's going to run the same like.
You don't even get the
for
images,
every GPU
dude.
you plug in.
This is upsetting.
The reason why is that UL's Procyon benchmarks, which include some other AI tests. This is for professionals only. So this is like pro prices. So this is not for consumers really, as in like
not for consumption,
off the shelf. Which is a shame because I thought this would be like a cool benchmark. Like this would be cool if they added it to like 3D Mark, like, you know, just to be like, you know, image generator.
Why does it cost so much money though?
Because I like it's for
where is the justification for the price? Aimed at professional space, yeah, okay, but $5,000 annually
for a license, yeah.
For a number, you get a number
it's unlimited. Like, you know, like you're a company, right? And you buy it. It's kind of like buying like a office for your company, right? You would spend like thousands because you get You can
You get
install it on like
space,
50
right?
PCs, right? You can install it for like 100 users. This is the same thing. It's like it's for companies, so you can unlimited installs across your.
Yeah, but if they all have the same PC, why would you do that?
But also as well, like it doesn't really make sense. Exactly, right? It's like how valuable is it going to be? It's just a benchmark.
Yeah.
You're only going to get like a couple of people benchmarking stuff.
It'd be like 40 bucks.
Yeah, this should be like. I mean, sure, there might be like licensing things for running Stable Diffusion. Maybe like like having like it run locally to do this benchmark. But at the end of the day, yeah.
Does it generate the same? Do you know if it generates the
Yeah,
same?
because it'll be like a 3D Mark, right? Like 3D Mark runs the same like times by like the same thing. So it's going to run the same like the castle images or whatever the examples that they've got. Like it's just going to run that. Yeah.
Or like Heaven or whatever.
Yeah, and then it just like 3D Mark it monitors like GPU temperature, usage, memory, VRAM, etc., etc. Like it has all those metrics in there.
This is egregious, Kosta. I find this offensive.
Yeah, no. $5,000 if you want to benchmark your GPU for.
I wonder how long the test is. Is it like a minute?
Probably, yeah. Which is what? How much per second? Let's have a if it's a 60-second test, 60-second.
For a number. I don't understand.
So it's $83 per second.
And oh my God. I want to know more about this because this is $5,000 a year.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like this was announced, right? And I was like, oh, this is cool. So I'm like, all right, I want to see if I can see how much it is or get it. And if you you have to like actually like click on the product page, then you have to click on like buy now. Then it brings you to their site where it says like $5,000 for a site license because it's only available to professionals. I'm like, what? I was like,
what a rip, dude.
Mm-hmm.
This must do something more than what like it can't just spit out 1080 and then like that's it. Like it can't do that.
Yeah.
I refuse to believe that is all that this does.
Mm-hmm.
Unless 3D Mark are just like, they are kind of like the gold standard when it comes to just hard like synthetic benchmarks. They just take in everyone for a ride because there is no really like there's no one else competing. Who else would be a competing company in terms of synthetic benchmarks?
Well, there's a few. There's like like the like Blender has built-in benchmarks and like there's those CPU ones. There's like a few other ones. Was it that Superposition is the one.
Superposition, I remember when that came out.
Yeah, there's a few.
But everyone tries to break the 3D Mark gold score. Like
that's right. But like in terms of like measuring like performance for GPUs, like that's like the first thing that gets leaked, or like the first thing like even like companies like NVIDIA and AMD, like they tweak their launch drivers for these GPUs specifically, optimize them to run 3D Mark benchmarks, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And when we're like at Computex, everyone's trying to break 3D Mark scores. They're not trying to break well, I think they're trying to break Blender
CPUs,
as well for CPU.
Like, for CPU, yeah. It's things like Blender and...
Yeah. Well, that actually annoys me, but I'm glad you brought that up. That's awesome.
Keeping on the AI train, there's another... This one's actually kind of cool.
No, this one won't annoy me. This one's cool. I like this one.
NVIDIA's LATTE3D.
I like the name.
It's a generative AI model, and it creates 3D models and objects in seconds. And it's basically the 3D models are ready to be plugged into games or any other application, 3D modeling for special effects or marketing ads or whatever. So it is a little bit limited, but like NVIDIA have created this as like a framework. So basically, it's been trained on animals and what NVIDIA calls everyday objects. But it's pretty powerful. So like it can create like an object in like about 10 to 12 seconds, and it runs off a GPU. So, but you know, like it's like you can put like specific breeds of like animals, and like they got a few examples, like a sphinx on a skateboard, or an amigurumi crane, which is like that like stitched like a toy version of something. So like you can like an origami sphinx cat, so then it looks like it was made from paper. So like there's it's powerful enough to not just go, you just say like give me like a cat, and then it's going to give you everybody the same version of the same thing. You know what I mean? It's still generative AI, so it creates a unique things, but every single time.
This is cool.
So basically, so you just put in a text prompt, just like with the image generator, and it just creates like a 3D model. It was trained on NVIDIA's A100 Tensor Core GPUs, and running LATTE3D running natively on one of its RTX A6000 GPUs, which is an AI GPU, expensive. Like it creates the models instantly if it's running on like their powerful like workstation GPUs.
Wow.
And it plugs into most popular like 3D modeling software and like game engines, but also as well NVIDIA Omniverse, which is what RTX Remix that we've spoken about a few times runs on.
Yeah, I love that.
So like this could be like something like where developers can take like an old game, and then or like modders can just like create objects for remix projects instantly using AI.
So this will work, I'm guessing, on like Unreal. What else do we have?
Like people use
Unity.
Like people use like the same 3D modeling software that plugs into all those engines. So like 3D modelers use like Maya or these other like platforms and programs. So like this 3D model that it spits out will just be a file that you just load up.
That is awesome. That is really cool.
Where it gets cool is that it's a open model. So NVIDIA is opening up, so a developer can take the AI model and train it on other data types. So NVIDIA just trained it on animals and everyday objects, so like cups, whatever. So for example, like I put an example in there, like for example, let's say there's a World of Warcraft 2 coming.
Oh.
Right?
I set up.
And Blizzard take this AI model and then train it on all Warcraft concept art.
Yes.
Assets, existing assets.
Yes.
And art style, and then feed it like new concept art as well. And then obviously this hand model is creating the worlds, right?
Yes.
But because we're talking about a sequel, right? So the detail level is cranked up to 100. Imagine like a game the size of World of Warcraft with modern game detail. The amount of people you would need just to fill the world with objects would be insane, right? Like it's just not feasible.
You are talking dirty to me right now, Kosta. Go on.
Yeah. So you use this to, like you've created your tavern, right? Somebody has designed it, drawn it, modeled it, and then it's like, okay, I need cups, we need chairs, we need this, and this model just spits out all these bang, 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 and you just chuck them in.
Got a tear in my eye. Tech like that really does get downstairs moving.
This is cool. Yeah,
it is.
So this is like a potential game changer. So when the story got posted to Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that, that was my little tag, is that this is a potential game changer for developers.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Even indie developers as well. Like if they can get their hands on it, and like, for those Steam games that are, they don't have a lot of budget. It's like 4 blokes in a basement that have been working for 3 years on this one linear storyline, and it comes out and it's really like it's not super popular, but it's well respected within the gaming community. Those titles I think are really going to benefit from this kind of technology, because it's like you were saying, if everything is handcrafted, that's why the timeline, like the runway for the game is, it takes so long to get it done. But if you can just get rid of all of the
if you can, like,
get rid of all the cups, you get rid of all the stuff that is, you know, just a pain in the ass to
like focus on other things.
Yeah,
right?
the story, like tell a good story, or the combat, or the in-game mechanics, like make the world more interactable. I think this is fantastic.
Yeah,
Just frees up time.
Yeah, like the way my example works, like it involves the artist, right? So because you're training the model, and you probably and you got your concept artist like feeding it new art as well, and it's constantly training on it to understand the way that like that world or universe should look.
Yeah.
And then it can create objects that fit in that.
Yeah.
And it's basically a support tool. It's not a replacement. So like, you know, using AI, like it's going to be like tricky. Like, no, for example, like if a game was like 100% created by AI now, it'll be boring. It'll be borderline
Monotonous,
or just weird, or like it'll just be like, it just won't make much sense. Like there'll be, you know, like it's not, I mean, all these tools are just there to make life easier or to support existing visions or make things easier in a way.
Yeah.
Or to be able to open up access to certain things for other people.
So you don't think these kind of tools will, you know, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here, because I do really love this technology, because I'm a gamer, and I'm thinking of the impact this would have on timelines for games. But what about jobs? What about artists, 3D modeling jobs? It's hard for me to say that this won't get rid of, like,
yeah,
you know what I'm trying to say. It's going to kill some jobs off in studios, but then we get our games quicker. It's rough. It is going. Yeah, it is rough.
But the thing is, though, like, there'll be games, like bigger games that wouldn't be possible without this sort of technology, right?
Yeah,
so
of
like,
course.
Let's say you've got, or for example, it will be different, right? Let's say GTA 7 is like, okay, now we're going to do something even bigger and.
I think I might be dead by the time that comes out.
We probably will.
I do hear what you're saying, though.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, well, the version of the game created with like 1,000 people in all these different fields doing whatever is going to be like this. But that's like a project that will be like, well, we've got these 1,000 people, but now we've got these AI tools that can make it even bigger. You know what I'm saying? Like it could make what's already like a limit in terms of what's possible and just push it a little bit further.
Yeah. I think it really depends on the reliance the developer has on the technology. Like, I think what you're describing, it's more of like it's a support system. It is to, you know, like we were saying before, get rid of the cups, the trees, and all of those things. We don't need people working on that. That frees up their time to work on something that's more important. I don't really want it to be, because I do feel for studios, and especially the artists that do put in a lot of work to what they're drawing and making within these games. I don't want the studio to go like, okay, well, we have LATTE3D. We don't need a quarter of the people in the art department now, and now they're out of work. Like, that sucks. I want it to be used as a support tool,
as a tool.
Yeah, not a complete reliance on this. I think this might actually flex into, I don't know if it's the story that I put in here, but if you just head to my author page, OpenAI trying to sell its video generation AI software to Hollywood. Kind of goes back into our first conversation about Dune. So OpenAI is shopping Sora around to Hollywood directors, and Tyler Perry, I think it's Tyler Perry, he axed a I think it was an $800 million expansion on his Atlanta studio, because Sora
like
is
Hollywood
now possible. How do you feel about this? just to make a comparison between game studios and movies, like this for movies, and I can't really put into words why I don't like it in movies, but I'm for it in games.
Well, the thing is, we're not entirely for it, like in games, to the sense that the whole image is generated by AI or whatever. Like, for example, like games is still a interactive medium first and foremost.
Yes,
like story and stuff like that. Or there are cinematic games and they're fully immersive, but it's a different type of immersion. AI in games is like DLSS. It's upscaling.
Yeah,
it just improves performance. Things like LATTE3D will be like, okay, that's just like clutter. Like you walk into a building and all this clutter is being generated by AI, and like it doesn't make a difference to the actual gameplay as long as like the level was created by a person, or the pacing, or what's happening, or the mechanics was play tested and fine tuned by programmers, and etc. etc. Like there's still so much hands on, or people are touching things that it like AI is just like another tool in that sense. When it comes to like a movie, and I think probably we're probably the same, is that if you're using the AI to generate your special effects shots, or whatever the case is, like a whole 6 seconds of special effects shot of like, a spaceship flying over a city, etc., etc., or whatever it is, then the entirety of the visual is AI generated. So it kind of like sounds like there was no actual
human intervention
storyboard for that. There was no planning for framing in terms of like how do we want it to look, or what is the lighting going to look like? Can we fine tune this and that? Like, how is it like it sounds like Sora just gives you the output, right?
Yeah.
Like you can fine tune your input and say like, I want the camera to move like this. I want this type of lens. I want this type of focal point, etc. You can do all that sort of stuff, sure. But the outcome is just like, bleh, here it is. And that's where it becomes like, well, like who created the movie then? Like, sure, you can. Yeah. And is it just going to be soulless? You know what I mean? Like
it doesn't sit the same with me than video game, it being used in video games. And
like, this is going to be like,
I think it is like, I think you hit the nail on the head, or at least partly, with the interaction. When I'm watching a movie, I really do think I'm witnessing an artistic endeavor, like I was saying with the Dune conversation. Like it is the same for me as Picasso setting up in front of me with a bit of canvas and he's painting. Like that's how I really do look at film. I'm a big movie guy. I love film. I love cinematography. I'm all about all of that. But I don't have that same approach when I like look at a game. I do obviously respect the graphics. I respect the storyline, but I think I'm lost.
No, I never do either. They break, like you can't, like it's just not the same thing, right?
It's because I'm interacting, right? That's why.
Yeah, but also as well, like there is something about a game that is so distant from a movie. Let's say like you take Call of Duty, right? It's one of the biggest franchises, and you look at their campaigns, right? And there's characters speaking, there's like cinematics, real-time facial work, like it's all top tier stuff, right? It looks really good. But then you play a stage and you kill like 80 people, right? And then the next stage 70, and then the next stage 50. And then there's like a stealth mission, you kill 7 people. And if you think about like that in terms of like if that was a movie, like what is this, Rambo? Like what are you doing? Like just more, like it doesn't make sense for like one person. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's like, or even like an RPG, which is like character driven. Like, and stories in RPGs can be brilliant, but they're kind of like these moments. They're kind of like a book, because if you try and take it all as like a movie, it's a different thing, because like, you're just looting corpses, and like, there's game things that just separate, that are just completely separate from.
Would that be
cinema.
the suspension of disbelief?
Yes.
Yeah. I think
which I can do quite healthily when it comes to movies. Like I don't need things explained. Like if it just looks good, I'm happy.
yeah, I am more of a nut for literature, the dialogue. Like, but my favorite writer is Aaron Sorkin. He wrote Steve Jobs, Moneyball,
West Wing.
yeah, West Wing, and all of that. Like,
Yeah, great writer. He's like a very great dialogue writer.
Oh yeah, I am a sucker for his writing. So if the game has really good writing, it doesn't need like I've said this before on the show. Like RuneScape is still one of my favorite games of all time, and that game.
Well, that's why like
you can play it on your phone.
A better way to say with RPGs is that they're kind of like it's dialogue driven, right? Like the story is all about you interacting and dialogue choices. So if the writing's good, then it just, you know, like you look at Fallout New Vegas, a lot of people love that as the best Fallout, but like in terms of like the game mechanics, not quite. It's like a little bit buggy and messy and all over a bit sloppy.
Yeah.
But the writing is just so good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the characters and the way they're done. So like,
and that gets the suspension of disbelief to the point where
but that's
okay.
so different to a movie, right?
Yeah.
Like it's, you know what I mean? Like whereas games that try to be like movies tend to fail big time.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting because I reckon there's going to be movies that come out that are going to use AI
like,
to...
I'm obviously older than you, but like if you remember like when Jurassic Park came out, or if you don't remember, like when Jurassic Park came out and it was like practical effects with CG, but like one of the first big CG movies where real dinosaurs, it's like, wow, okay, how did they do this?
I had nightmares, Kosta.
And then for the next decade, sorry, was
I had nightmares. Go on.
It is actually quite, like Jurassic Park is underrated in terms of how good it is. But what I'm getting is that like for 10 years after that, right, CG became so bad. Like, you know, like there was CG in every movie, and in a lot of cases it just looked terrible. It was just overused and barely used well. And then you get examples like Lord of the Rings or, you know, where it's used well, or even like look at Dune Part 2. The budget of that is a third or a quarter of a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
And yet the special effects in Dune are so amazing, right?
Amazing.
Like it just everything is 100% like wow. Like the shots, the ships.
Oh, the worm scene.
The design, right? But then you look at Marvel and it's just like a mess of just like...
No, everything's a green screen.
And you're like, yeah, okay. Like none of it looks believable, right?
Yeah.
So like my point is that like that the whole like when CGI came on the scene, there was just like there was just so many movies that just looked bad. And the thing is like good filmmakers from bad filmmakers, good films from bad films. Like the ratio is there's, you know, for every good film there's 50 bad films, right?
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? Or like it's not even close. So the fact that like, you know, Sora being used for thingos, it's like sure, okay. But like it's not going to change the ratio, right? A bad movie is still going to be a bad movie.
That is true.
You know what I mean? Like CG has been used badly. Like it's you can't create like a good, like the AI is not going to change the filmmaker behind it, or you know, or the intent or whatever it is. Like it's not going to suddenly make it good.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not going to make, and if it's bad, it's going to stay bad.
Yeah, I that is very well put. Very, very well put. Yeah. It's going to be it's going to be interesting. Like I did a story the other day. I think it was yesterday actually. OpenAI released stunning Sora-created videos made by artists and directors. It was a bit of a...
Yeah, some of it's really cool though. Like, I'm impressed by it. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks awesome. Like my particular my favorite was the Airhead one. Created by Shy Kids, a Toronto multimedia production company, and it's a short film. It goes, I mean, it's very, very quick, but I kind of agree with some of the takes from these directors, and obviously this is it's a puff piece from OpenAI. Like they don't mention once about their model being potentially trained on copyright video, but I agree with some of the quotes. Like I can hear your system sounds, by the way.
Yeah. Sorry.
As great as Sora is at generating things that appear real, what excites us is its ability to make things that are totally surreal. So if we want to look at it in a positive light, we're going to get a lot more stories that are maybe would have cost, say, $50 million to film if you wanted to use practical effects, or even just to film or CGI or something like that. You might get that if you wanted to make that as the director. You might have to pay OpenAI $1 million or something like that. But now we get this movie that comes out that could be, I don't know, it could be a smash hit. It could be a critic's beautiful story.
Film. Yeah, but like a short film like this, but a short film and these sort of like art pieces, or even like, you know, like a music video where it's completely, where art direction is like at the forefront, right? Like where it's like a tone piece, or like, you know, like a great music video is like, oh, it's kind of like a 3-minute art piece, or whatever the case is. Like a lot of short films, you know, very distinct. But like, how would, like, my disconnect is like, how then do you use this for, let's say, like, you know, like a big budget movie, or even like a drama, or whatever the case is. Like where is it going to, like, you can use Sora to generate entire sequences, or like, you know, like aerial shots, or this and that. Like,
I don't know.
And could we even tell the difference? Like, you know, like if there was like, you know, like a 3-second, like let's say you needed like you're in the editing room, and like it would be good if we had an establishing shot of this location. All we need is like 2 seconds of like drone footage of just going past this building, and then we can cut to this scene, because otherwise it's going to be confusing as to where we are, blah, blah, blah. And then you could do that. And then in that case, and if you can't tell the difference, like, sure, it's fine. I think like using it like as a, you know, like to be in charge of like a full dynamic scene or whatever, like is where it becomes like, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. It needs to be used in the same fashion as what we were talking about with the video games, as a tool to help you create the content that you're wanting to create, and not as a reliance. Like, I think I'm imagining it being used. Say there's a character in the foreground, it's a green screen shot. We want him on a beach. Instead of actually going to the beach, we set up the actor in the foreground,
or even like modeling like a simple background or whatever.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like,
I'm okay with that for some reason. There is a fine because line here somewhere where it's like, it's too much. I don't like it. And I don't know where this light is. If it's too much, I'm like, no.
But this is like all mostly fake anyway, right? Like digital filmmaking or digital effects, it's like people are creating sets and models, and what you see is like manipulation. And a lot of the cases you don't even know what's CG or not anymore.
Yeah.
And like the obvious stuff is obvious, right?
Yeah.
But the non-obvious stuff is like you don't even notice it, right? Like they can, let's say, you know, like digitally remove like a logo from a character's shirt or whatever, and so they do that, and for some reason or whatever, and you don't even know it, and that's taking place. Or like character walking down the street, and they just remove some of the telephone poles because it makes it look ugly. It's more poetic if they weren't there, or it'll be more pleasing. You know, the cinematography and the framing will just look nicer, or whatever the case is. And they remove all those stuff. And like there's so much digital manipulation that happens in movies that we don't even know.
Yeah, what is real and stuff, and what isn't.
So what's like
what's the difference?
They just kind of need to like explain how this will be used, like in an example for like a major movie or whatever. Like, hey, Sora can do this, Sora can do that, as opposed to say, hey, you type in this and it's going to create the entire thing for you. It's like, well, that's where it becomes like. You know, like, I don't think it'll be good. So
I don't know. It puts a bad taste in my mouth. We should move on to another story here. Where would you like to jump to, my friend?
Let's go into VR. We'll go through some of the stuff that we talked about in the summary. So make sure we cover everything.
Yeah, all right, let's do it.
This is a quick one. So there's a couple of VR stories. So a while ago, so PlayStation VR 2 has been a huge sales success. So it launched for PS5 last year. It launched with that Horizon Call of the Mountain game.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually pretty good. I've got one. I was actually sent it by Sony. But, like Sony hasn't really supported it all that much. And it, like there aren't any like massive games. And also VR isn't huge, let's just say anyway. So anyway, so recently, there were layoffs with Sony, and then they said that there were reports that they're halting production on the PSVR 2 because they made too many or they hasn't sold as well as they thought. And then, they're bringing more games to PC. And during that financial call, they said that, look, we're experimenting with bringing PSVR 2 support to PC. Now, this would make it like another headset that you can connect to a PC, like a MetaQuest or Valve Index or all the
HTC Vive, yeah.
The Vive headsets, all those ones and stuff like that. Which is like, oh, okay, do we need another one? Well, I mean, the PSVR 2 was made to hit a certain price point, but it's got 4K OLED display with, 4K 2000 by 2000 pixels per eye, 120 hertz, 110 degree field of view. Like it has like pretty decent specs, and it's got like full motion controls, inside out tracking, and so it's like a decent headset, right? It's actually comfortable and pretty cool. So a lot of people have been like thinking like, oh, this will be good for PC, right? Because it's like another OLED option, or a really good one that's priced well for an OLED VR headset. But the only problem was that like it had like Sony had like hard things in like the firmware of like, it's like it has to be connected to a PlayStation because it's got all these checks in there. So anyway, there's been like a firmware update for it recently. So Sony is definitely looking at bringing it to PC because the latest firmware update removed their restrictions on being able for it to talk to a PC. So like, there was like these display port like there were all these like compression things that like if it doesn't have that, like it's just not going to communicate. So this company that does like VR mods like said, oh, you're going to need an adapter to try and get this to work. We're going to try and make an adapter like just to create a market for like if you're a PC game and you want to use it, they were trying to do it. So they came out and said, look, well, the latest firmware update's actually pretty cool, removes all those checks. It actually adds support for NVIDIA GPUs. So apparently before, trying to get it to talk to a PC, like the only way to get it working was if it was talking to a Radeon GPU.
Oh.
That's because inside the PS5 is AMD hardware.
Oh, okay, yes.
So this firmware update kind of like indicates that this is coming soon or definitely on the cards for the next 6 months or more.
Wow. Okay. This is another step towards Sony bringing the walls of exclusivity down.
Yeah. And what would be cool is that if they actually port their Horizon Call of the Mountain to PC or and which would be like another avenue for them to like, hey, this now works on Steam and hey, all Steam VR headset users, or if you buy a PSVR headset for PC, you can play our game that we obviously spent a bunch of money on.
Yeah.
Because the problem was that like, if PSVR 2 hasn't sold well and they spent millions creating this game, it's like, now we're going to say like either they're washing their hands and saying, all right, now it works on PC as well, and we're not going to do much more with it. Or they port the game over as well and say like, well, now we've got access to 10 million more. And I think they're just looking at the data because the most popular headset on PC at the moment is the MetaQuest. And the MetaQuest 2 sells really well because it's a standalone headset, but you can connect it to your PC.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I would like to see... I mean, these are damn good specs for a VR headset. Yeah. $549. You get 2 4K OLED displays. Like, that's a strange resolution, 2000 by 240. 120 hertz.
Just for the aspect ratios, yeah.
Yeah, but it's for $550, man. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And I mean, obviously, like the Meta Quest is cheaper, and that's why that's selling really well. And the other VR story was that there's a Meta Quest 3 Lite
Yes.
that's going to be coming, and it's going to actually remove the like the big thing about the Quest 3 we're talking about, because it had like the mixed reality. It's got the full color cameras and stuff.
Yeah,
it's actually really cool, and it's kind of like an affordable Vision Pro in some respects.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying it's a Vision Pro, but it's actually affordable. But the thing is, like, it actually costs a lot more than the Meta Quest 2. But the Meta Quest 2 is still like outselling it. From what I like, in terms of you looking at like Amazon sales, like the Meta Quest 2 is always higher than the Meta Quest 3.
Yeah.
Because the Meta Quest 3 is like 500 US.
Yeah.
Whereas the Quest 2 is like down to like 250 or like 280 or something like that.
Mm.
It's significantly cheap. It's almost like half the price. So they're thinking about launching a Meta Quest 3 Lite, which makes sense. Like, it's probably going to be just cheaper because it's removing the cameras, but the Meta Quest 3 has better display. So then people will be like, oh, I'll get that because it's a budget. It's cheaper and it's a good upgrade because the display is a lot better and it's got a better processor. You know what I mean? So like, it'll just be like a Meta Quest 2 replacement as opposed to, like, it seems that, like, that to me, it kind of sounds like that Meta's just going, well, we've got the Meta Quest 2 and still selling like gangbusters. So we'll just replace it with the Meta Quest 3 Lite.
Yeah.
Because, sourcing the older hardware, they obviously just buy the current chip in bulk anyway, and they just remove the expensive bits from it and they can sell it for the same price.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's apparently coming this year.
Okay.
Which would be kind of cool. I'll be interested in.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why I'm a sucker for VR, even though I barely, if ever, play VR. But I've got a PSVR 2 and I'm hanging for like the PC like update so I can just plug it in to the 4090.
Yeah, it's exactly why you
replay the Star Wars Squadrons game.
Oh yeah.
Because with the OLED displays, you're going to get the nice contrast ratio.
Yeah. It's going to be gorgeous.
I played that with the Valve Index, which is a good headset, but that's like LCD displays. So it's LCD, it's like you can tell.
Yeah.
Whereas OLED is just a little bit better contrast.
Yeah.
And it's got really good contrast in the PSVR 2 headset.
OLED is where it's at. And because we're talking about OLED, did you want to quickly jump over to that?
Yeah.
OLED story? Yes. So this is it's going viral right now on Tweaktown, which is I think pretty cool. I mean, it shows that obviously people are concerned about burn-in. I don't think they need to be as concerned as what they are.
But it's still like if you're spending like thousands of dollars, like you don't want.
Yeah, I know. I get it. I get it.
Everything has a lifespan, but it's like, well, you buy this nice big TV, and it's like, well, if you get 5 years out of it, you're going to be fine. But it's like, well, I don't want 5 years out of it. Like,
yeah, you want longer.
I want to have it for a decade.
I think the OLED burn-in concerns are much more appropriate for monitors because you have, you've got the date and time at the bottom. Yeah, you got static images. So just for the listeners who aren't knowledgeable in what burn-in is and how it occurs, essentially a rudimentary way of putting it without getting into like the physics of it is if you have static images on the pixels, eventually the light from those that is displaying such as the date and time, it burns in on the pixels and creates a permanent image of the date and time there. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's like, it's not OLED specific, but why they call it burn-in is because the way OLED works is they're like self-lit pixels, or like each pixel is its own organic, like, it's not like a backlight or whatever. So like each pixel fires up on its own, and which is why you get like when on an OLED display, if you got like black or or a dark scene,
it's true
like
black.
If it's black. It's true black because that pixel is not even firing, right?
It's off.
It's like you can't beat that contrast ratio. That's like infinite contrast ratio, which is what they got, which is technically true because there's no way to measure it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's off.
Yeah.
So it's going to look black. So it's pitch black. But with OLED as well, like which is why brightness is also like a factor in and why they have these eco modes, is because OLED just runs really hot.
Yeah.
So like these pixels run hot, especially if there's all of them, especially if it's a bright scene. So what, like, you know, like if the way that they test is that like if you have like CNN or one of those news channels that has the logo there constantly and they chuck all the brightness to max, and so those pixels are just burning bright and hot. And image retention, which is something that exists in all displays, you know, when it goes to switch to something else, basically you still see the previous you know, like the CNN, like a ghost logo, because it's essentially just burnt into the display.
Yeah. Yeah. Burnt into those tiny little globes, which is unfortunate. But there is
tiny little
globes.
Segue.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I had burn in on like an old CRT TV, you know, like old TVs. So
How?
when I was super young, Zelda on the N64, right? I was like hanging for this game. I always used to check in magazines, like, you know, the latest news, but while like Zelda's coming out on N64.
Yeah.
And then like it came out around about like school holidays, like, you know, end of the year, sort of like school holidays. And so basically I decided like to be a shut-in. I'm like, I've been hanging for this game for like following in magazines for years now.
Yeah.
So then I played it like, you know, like whatever, like 10 hours a day, whatever the case is, on like a CRT display. And then like, you know, watching TV on it like later, and you could just still see like the hearts and the magic bar.
Oh my God.
It actually burnt in like on a CRT.
That is
so burn in
awesome.
isn't like some OLED specific thing. Like burn in is obviously because like those like image retention happens on like LCDs. Like it can happen on anything because all monitors generate heat, and at some point it's like if it's just the same image over and over, you're gonna get burn in.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what type of display it is.
Yeah, but you really like CRTs. That's like you really push that. And yeah, you're right, because burn-in can even happen. I've seen it with FPS gamers that like they like to put a red dot in the center of their screen, like right where the crosshair is. And if they're just playing Counter-Strike Source or Go or whatever, 16 hours a day, and then they
like a bright dot,
a bright red dot, just so like that's where they're clicking on heads. Even though that is, well, the camera is spinning, the dot remains in the dead center of the screen, and then they just turn off their game and you can still see the bright red dot. But we might have a fix for this, at least when it comes to OLED, and it does get into a bit of the nitty gritty. A new study that is published in the journal Nature, the very well-respected scientific journal, researchers from the University of Cambridge have proposed a solution. They propose better control for the blue light emitting diodes. The researchers explain that encapsulating the light emitters in alkaline straps would not only cut down on burn-in, but also make the manufacturing process much more efficient. So there isn't much to go off of other than that. Unfortunately, the breakthrough such as this in the understanding of how OLED pixel technology is far from being implemented into the new OLED gaming monitors. It's not going to hit the market anytime soon. It is just a breakthrough in, I suppose, just understanding how OLED works and how to prevent this burn-in from occurring. If it was going to be implemented, it would, I would imagine, require a partial or even complete overhaul of the manufacturing process. And as we know in the technology industry, they already know, like, we're up to 3rd generation OLED from Samsung, and there is
they got QD OLED and stuff like that. But like, you know, like the Asus ones, like their high-end ones have like a thin layer of like graphene film or whatever.
Yeah, so is the MSI ones. But that's more for heat dissipation.
Yeah, that's for heat dissipation, which like dramatically reduces
burn-in,
the chance of like burn-in, or just on that alone.
Yeah.
Then you got pixel shift technology, which has been around for a while, which is like all about shifting pixels around, but it still doesn't. It's not great for like a giant logo or something like that, like a red dot in the middle of the screen. You can just shift that pixel around, but then that sort of stuff people would turn off if they're gaming
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. And you've also got OLED Care as well, which is something that MSI has implemented, and it like a on an OSD prompt comes up after I think it's like 8 hours or so, and then you execute this thing and it turns off your monitor.
That's the one thing about like OLED monitors now. Like it's almost like like they're just like, you know, like it's like, well, we don't want to be responsible for anything, so it's like almost they're overdoing it, because like you're constantly just getting like these like
warnings.
You need to refresh. We need to do a refresh of your monitor or whatever.
Yeah.
You need a pixel refresh, or you need something.
Yeah, it's a pain. It's a pain when you're gaming and this whole thing comes up right in front of you and you're like, well, I don't want to turn this off because I don't want, like, I want to prolong the life of my new monitor for as long as possible. So in my reviews, I always recommend people to keep it on eco, I crank the brightness though, like 100%. Because all of these OLED panels are so damn dim. Like they're at like 250 nits on average, which is just
for SDR.
Yeah, for SDR, but like not everything looks great in HDR like, either. So
the reason why they don't run them so bright is because they because of the heat, and that's why like OLED's just like the one negative to an OLED display is that its overall brightness is lower than an LCD. Now peak brightness they've gotten up super high, but that's like, you know, like small pixel, like, you know, like they, like some of the high-end OLEDs, they can say that they can get up to like 1200 nits or whatever peak brightness.
Yeah.
But that just means HDR, and it's like a fireworks display, and then like a small section for like half a second, it's 1200 nits, right? It's not like the whole screen is ever going to be that bright uniformly.
Yeah.
It's like that's not possible with OLED.
Yeah.
So that's why like SDR content is like usually capped at about 250 to 300, and like a non-OLED display, obviously like a good LCD, right? Like a good IPS display, whatever, they go up to about 500 for SDR content, which is super bright, really.
Yeah, it's fine. It gets past just the eye test. Like OLED is still the cream of the crop when it comes to pixel technology, and I really hope that with breakthroughs like this in understanding how like it actually works at the diode level, trickles down into new panels from LG and Samsung as well. But unfortunately, both LG and Samsung, they know like 4th generation, 5th generation, and I would even guess 6th generation OLED pixel technology down the, like, they already know what's coming out down the line. So this study coming out now doesn't mean that we're going to see it in the 4th, 5th, or I would even maybe the 6th, maybe, but
also like OLEDs degrade over time because of the organic nature of them.
Yeah, what is it? Organic light emitting diode.
Yeah. So it like an OLED, like brightness is a problem with OLEDs, but like the way it degrades is that they just become dimmer over time. It's not like a huge amount, but like an OLED TV, you know, 5 years ago, if it's day to day, used every day, 5 years later, it's going to be dimmer. Like the overall peak brightness drops because they just degrade over time. So, you know, OLED could eventually be replaced by, was it micro LED? Is that the one? Yeah, micro LED. But micro LED has been like on the cards for so long.
It doesn't look as good.
Oh no, you can get like pretty much to OLED levels almost. But like the thing is, like it's so expensive, and it gets like ridiculously bright, like quadruple the brightness of an OLED display. But and also as well, like it doesn't degrade over time.
Is that the pixel technology that has local dimming? Like it does local dimming in certain spots. Like it might have say 678 local dimming lines.
No. Like it's not like the mini LED.
Oh, that's mini
lighting zones, local dimming zones, like 1,000 versus 8 million that you get with like OLED. No, this is closer to OLED.
Yeah,
that's why it's kind of like a next gen sort of tech. But it's like there are like big displays that, you know, like every time it like CES or whatever, like, you know, companies show like their big micro LED display and like, oh, look at this amazing thing. It's like OLED, but better because it's brighter and more advanced, etc., etc. But like it's still so expensive to produce that companies are just going all in on OLED because the cost of OLED have come down dramatically.
Yeah, and I do like OLED, even though it does have these issues. We should jump to another story here
that we covered in the summary. Maybe the iOS update.
Sure. So these are rumors about Apple's iOS 18. They are all coming from Mark Gurman, Bloomberg's Apple insider, from his Power On newsletter. He has been talking about for a few weeks now that iOS 18 is going to be the biggest update in the company's history. With iOS 18, we can expect the next iPhone line. So with this year's with this year's iPhone, which is expected to release with a bunch of AI features, AI dedicated hardware as well. iOS 18 will add more customization to the home screen. Mac Rumors reported that this won't mean that you can put apps wherever you want, which is, I think, a ridiculous thing that Apple does. Like, why can't I just put apps at the bottom of my home screen? No, they all jump up to the top. However, iOS 18 will introduce the ability to create blank spaces, rows, and columns between icons. So everything is still going to be on an invisible grid, but you can add blank spaces, which is awesome.
I mean, is this a groundbreaking feature?
Oh, for Apple it is. Something that's been on Android for, I don't even know, forever.
I didn't even realize that you couldn't have a blank space.
Oh no, of course not, Kosta. I mean, you can. I mean, you can, but you have to add like you got to add like a shortcut, but then you got to make the shortcut invisible. And you can't press that thing.
You got to like hack.
It's a nightmare, is what it is. It's a nightmare. But this will natively build it into the home screen customization, which is awesome. And something that everyone is looking forward to. Is probably going to be the biggest news out of the new iPhone. All of the normies will be like, "Oh my god, look at my home screen now." No one's going to be talking about the hardware that's inside the phone, the new AI features, or anything like that. They're just going to be
like a home screen update is.
Yeah, that was
that's the big everybody would see.
It's the biggest thing ever. Yeah, I remember when iOS 16 came out and everyone was posting videos everywhere of their newly customized iPhone screen. And every Android user ever is like, yeah, we've been doing this. We've been doing this for a while. But it is on the verge of coming out, and I'm mostly interested in the AI features because Gurman has been reporting that they're going to be designed to help manage your daily life. So I don't know what that entails exactly, but I can imagine...
That's pretty vague.
I can imagine Siri stinks. Let's just get that out of the way. Siri sucks. There isn't a bit of technology that bothers me more than Siri. Every time I ask her a question and she's like, I don't know that, or here's what I found on the web. I'm like, well, don't say anything. Just turn off. That's what I feel. Like, if you're going to give me 7 different links and I don't get previews or anything, I got to click into them and now I got to unlock my phone. It's like, this is a nightmare. Stop. I hope that Siri gets a massive upgrade with.
Yeah, it'll be like AI powered, right?
I
It'll
am
be like
imagining
Siri
that is
2.0.
what's going to be the direction here.
Because like an assistant has been around since, Clippy in Microsoft Word.
Clippy, what a guy. Dude, what a guy.
Yeah, right. Like it's like not an unknown thing, but like Apple just made it like Siri because like they gave it a personality.
Yeah.
Well,
that stinks.
not really. They just gave it like a name, and then you had Alexa and stuff like that. But I think giving it like AI or like putting AI hardware in or giving it some sort of AI, would be like kind of like a 2.0, or it would be a pretty impressive
Make it not suck.
feature.
Yeah, God, it bothers me. I actually raged at Siri just last night. Or is that Alexa? I don't know. All of these things really bother me when they don't work. Like,
I don't use them. Like, I don't use them because it's like I'll type it in.
I've got a Philips Hue set up in the lounge room, and I'll
search the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, I've got that connected to an Alexa home device, so I just walk in and go, Alexa, turn the lights on. But sometimes I watch her light up and then just not turn the lights on, and I'm like, ooh, yeah. Alexa, ooh, you're really bothering me. And then, or if I talk about Alexa in conversation but I'm not addressing her and she just starts talking, I'm like, oh, shut up, Alexa. I don't know, these things really get me going for some reason, so I cannot wait for new AI features to like them all to get upgraded. All of them need to get upgraded. I miss Google Assistant. Google Assistant is the best one that I've used when I had my Samsung Fold. That was awesome. Or when I had the Nexus, I think it was the 6. It was awesome, and they were way more rudimentary back then. Like they have seriously gotten way better. But Jesus, God, Siri gets me. Oh, God, she stinks. She's probably lighting up right now. I've got my phone down. So I can't wait for iOS 18. I don't know if this is going to be like these AI features are going to be exclusive to the new iPhone, or if like
they might be.
Yeah, I've got the iPhone 15 Pro Max.
But the thing is, like they would do it just because they would do it, right? Like it's a selling point. So it's like, sure, you can run on this, but why would we bother running
it? But I want some, like give me some features on this one.
Yeah.
Like
I think like new features should go to the previous generation. Like if you're an annual thing, like all new features should go to the previous one if they can.
Yeah, don't completely lock me off from AI features, because Siri is taking years off my life. I need her to be better. I need it. Let's move on to another story before I blow a gasket talking about Siri. What else do we have here? Did you want to...
I can briefly talk about...
You want to do GTA 6?
Yeah.
Because we're getting strapped for time here.
Yeah, and then we'll do the lunar lander.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, this is a quick one. So, news bulletin, GTA 6 might be delayed until 2026.
All right, on to the lunar lander. Go ahead.
This is from sources at Kotaku, and so the sources say that like odds are that it's like based on the current progress that it's going to be pushed to late 2025. All we were told was 2025. And the apparently like it was like the plan was to get it out spring, which would be kind of like April, May, June, around there, or March, April, May, like in the US. And so now they're saying like it could be pushed into 2025 or even 2026 now because production is falling behind. And what makes it sound like that it could be the case as well is that Rockstar apparently, or like some staff at Rockstar have told Aftermath, which is another publication, that the company isn't going back to the crunch period, the crunch work process that they had for Red Dead Redemption 2 and GTA 5. So when there were reports of like game developers being like worked like crazy to create these games, Rockstar was top of the list in terms of like horror stories from developers.
Yeah.
So like for GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2, basically you're looking at like, let's say like 6 months or maybe even up to a year of you working 80 hours a week. So basically 7 days, 10 hours working.
Jesus.
Like it's just like people burnt out, right? It's just insane crunch, like they call it. Either it happens like in bursts, like you do a week of that and then a week off. Like it's not sustainable in any situation. So like they have said that, you know, a lot of developers have come out that we're no longer working in that sort of like crunch style of like, you know, a game is like 6 months out and it's like, oh, we're falling behind schedule. So what we'll do is everybody will just work twice as hard to get it done. And that's usually what happens with games. And in all of Rockstar's games have been like that apparently, where, you know, 6 months close to release, everybody's just working nonstop to get it done. So if they're not going to do that this time, then that means the game doesn't come out until 2026.
Yeah, but why announce anything in the first place then?
Well, I mean,
like it's not like Rockstar has Take-Two up their ass and being like, you need to release it. It's like it's been like 12 years or something. Like you know what I mean? Like don't announce it if it's like, don't give me 2025 if it's going to slip into 2026. No, you. Oh man, this really gets me going for some reason. Rockstar doesn't have a publisher breathing down their throat telling them you need to release this.
But at the same time, they want to hit a certain date, right? So there's still pressure. There's still like shareholders and there's still like stakes in this. And it's like, sure, if it needs to be delayed, it'll be delayed.
GTA 5 made like $250 million in a quarter.
Yeah, but like
they're fine.
Then what about this then? Like, let's say you have one choice, which is like the game comes out like December 2025 or November 2025, or it comes out like the following year. And if it comes out like earlier, that means that the dev team is like worked to the bone and crunching like crazy to get it done and finished, or they have a healthy work-life balance and it's delayed.
I obviously don't want the developers to die at the keyboard, but I also want the company that has made us wait 12 years or so for this game to not give us a date. Like they shouldn't have even given us a date. If this is the current state of internally, it's falling behind schedule. It doesn't matter when this game comes out. Like it's not like it really doesn't. They could release it in October for Halloween for some reason, and it will still be the most purchased game of that year. Likely, it could be ever. This is the most anticipated game of all time. They shouldn't be given a date if they're not ready to release it at that date. This is a kerfuffle.
The problem with release windows and games, like games have gotten so big in scope that I think that developers and production schedules have lost sight of being able to know where the finish line is.
They're too close to it.
Any degree of accuracy.
Yeah, they're too close to it.
So many games either get delayed, like a whole bunch, or they release in a poor, buggy state. And in the case of Cyberpunk 2077, not only was it delayed, it was an absolute mess at launch.
Yeah, but they caved to public. They caved to the public.
That game feels new now because it took them 3 years to make it better.
Yeah, they caved to the public. They were like, "Where's the game? Give us the game." And then they're like, "All right, here's the game." And then it's like, "Oh well, this game sucks." It's like, well, okay, now what do you want? It's like, don't cave to the public. Like, all this news is coming out, and now they're going to be like, "Oh, I can't believe GTA 6 is going to be pushed into 2026. So I really hope they don't do what CD Projekt Red did and release it in 2025.
And just launch it, They won't.
I hope not.
If it gets like GTA 6 will release when it's ready.
It needs to. And also the developers don't need to die.
I want it to come out sooner rather than later.
Of course I do. Of course I want the game now. Like I'd play a buggy version of the game now. But yeah, maybe they are just too close to the project. Like I think this game is almost in its own, a league of its own. There is no publisher breathing down the neck. The developers have all the time in the world. Everyone is going to wait for it for as long as they need to. They shouldn't have given a 2025 day if we're starting to hear that it's going to slip into 2026. Now it's just thrown doubt on the entire project. It's like,
Yeah.
and that's not good PR. It's going to be, yeah. I just hope I did a story a couple of weeks ago. It's a similar story where it wasn't necessarily saying it's going to be delayed. It was just all of the, like, Rockstar removed the work from home. What?
Yeah, because they want to
crunch.
Well, they probably just want to be able to manage the production schedule to make sure everything is like on track or that people are all on hand.
I just don't think they should be like running to the finish line at all. Everyone has been patient for 12 years. We can wait.
But it's like when do you announce and whatever, and
it doesn't matter.
I think a lot of games get just announced way too early.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
You know what I mean? Like they just
did they know
like
they're
a trailer,
Rockstar?
or they just say the game we're working on X, and it's like, well, okay. But now if games now take like 6-7 years to make, don't announce them.
Yeah, don't
announce them
them.
until you're in like the final. Until your
game is gold.
Phase.
When your game goes gold, then announce it, because then I know that it's at least at 90 to 95% complete. You've got just the finishing touches. You like, obviously no game is ever complete, like 100% complete. There's always something to do. It's like a kitchen. But wait until it hits gold standard. Like the game is now gold. It's ready for publishing. It can publish. That's when you announce your game. Don't announce your game when it's in some like weird blueprint thing.
Or like just when you just had when you just got a logo.
Yeah.
Like some games it's like,
look, here's my idea for a game.
We've
coming out in 2030.
We've now like, like there are like game announcement like where it's just all you get is a logo and you're like, okay.
What are we doing?
What have you just decided to make this yesterday? And it's like, all right, let's announce.
And then they're like, pre-orders are open now. And you're like,
or like you do like Xbox, where like you show like a CG trailer for like Perfect Dark is coming back. That was like 4 years ago. They showed a trailer for it. It's like, where is it? We haven't seen gameplay or anything. It's like, no, they did a trailer because they just started building a studio to work on this game.
That's mad, dude. It's mad.
It's like why would you do that? Like, it's like, sure, you want to get hype, but you don't.
Yeah.
Hype is like a certain thing where like at some point people just forget.
I mean, they're not going to forget about GTA.
No, well, GTA 6 is in a league of its own, right?
Yes.
It's like, but they could have just, but it's so weird. Like,
they should have just.
As good as that. But that trailer is so good.
It was great. Like, well, it's great. It is
not
a record-breaking trailer, but oh man. Even the GOAT is plagued by the bullshittery of the games industry. Even the GOAT.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate to see. We'll just finish off the off this episode with a sad story about the first
one out for our homie.
Yeah. I actually did a Big Lebowski reference to this. Oh, it's not. It's actually it's a Hamlet, really, is where it came from, and that's where the Big Lebowski was referencing. But I was referencing the Big Lebowski because I love that movie. It's one of my favorite comedies of all time. Good night, sweet prince. Odyssey, the Odyssey lander, nickname Odie. Not really a big fan of the nickname. Odyssey is way Odysseus, sorry. Odysseus, sorry, is way cooler. Odie kind of stinks, but Odysseus.
Odie, like that's like the dog from like Garfield.
Now I hate it more.
Exactly.
Odysseus is a Greek mythological legend.
Yeah, Odysseus is like, it's a powerful name.
So the first US company to achieve a moon landing was Houston-based Intuitive Machines. They landed the Odysseus lunar lander on February 22nd. It became the first.
It fell over.
private company to achieve a moon landing and the first US lunar lander to land on the surface of the moon since the Apollo.
1970s.
What'd you say?
The early 1970s.
Yes, the early 1970s. Since Matt Damon did it in that Martian movie
50 years ago.
Wrong planet. So during the landing, the phone booth side's lander tipped over because one of its legs broke off and it was essentially communicating from its side. It was only designed to stay on the moon for about a week. It's a solar powered spacecraft and it stayed on there for about stayed active for about 7 Earth days. All of its mission objectives were reached within a reasonable, you know, it didn't hit like full expectations, but it was enough for it to go, like, for mission control to go, yep, that was well done. That was a successful mission.
You know, your
go ahead.
last paragraph here is it's very poetic, and I just want to. So basically, yeah. So it's dead, right? But the way you wrote it is kind of like you were writing like a eulogy, or just like telling like a story. The sun's rays were expected to hit the location of the lander in late March and hopefully provide Odie with some energy via its solar panels. Mission control operators listened for Odie on March 20th. But there was no communication from the lander, confirming what was projected. Forever silence. The end.
I have too much fun with my job. I really do. I like so saying goodbye to these things for some reason. It's like that. Lander was I think it was Endurance.
Yeah, on Mars.
Yeah, it said it's getting dark or something, and I'm like, oh boy, no. His solar panels are getting covered in dust, and he's just going, he's losing energy. It's like, it's getting dark, and he's like, goodbye. And I'm like, I'm crying. I'm just like saluting him. I'm like, yeah, go on.
Served us well.
So yes, Odysseus is asleep forever until an astronaut goes over there and goes all over its solar panels. I mean, it's never gonna be able to do that. There's no atmosphere on the moon, but you get what I mean. And
well, leave no lander behind. That's my motto.
I completely agree. So yes, a historic landing, historic mission. Can't wait to see what Intuitive Machines do next, because now that they've landed once, they can land again. It's unfortunate that it did tip over. Kind of funny, very unfortunate. But yeah, that's it for this week's episode, I think. Thank you very much for listening. If you've made it this far, please go like, comment, and subscribe on this. If you're just on the audio, go check out the YouTube. Go check out the other socials as well. We got plenty of TikToks and clips from all of the different stories, and all the stories that are mentioned in this episode are in the description below for further reading. Do you have anything to sign off with, my good friend?
No. Stay tuned for next week where we'll have 100 more stories that we didn't get to.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Thank you very much for listening, guys. See ya.